Hi guys, and welcome back to another video on Aisha's Academy. And today we're learning about algebra, changing the subject. And because it's the festive season, just thought I'd add some Christmas hats. So let's go. Okay, so when it comes to specifically changing the subject, what it basically means is that you end up rearranging the formula, or also known as equation, that you're given. So example 1. If a question says make P the subject of the formula m equals 3n plus 2p, first of all, I would think of the equal sign as like a fence, right? Let's get a bit creative. So imagine you've got a fence there. So when you're making something subject, you're basically going to end up moving everything on the same side as the letter that you're making the subject over to the other side, except P. In this case. So you always start off with the thing that's furthest away from whatever you're making the subject. So in this case, it's P. So in this example of this equation, the thing that's furthest away from P on the same side as it is 3n. And so rather than moving 3 and n separately, we're going to move 3n over to the other side. And when you move something over the fence, it changes and becomes opposite. So if it's positive 3 on one side, when you move it over the fence, it's going to become negative 3n. So now our equation has changed to m minus 3n, and then you have your fence, and then we've only now got left 2p on the other side. So then to leave p on its own, we need to move 2 over. But remember, if you have a number and a letter next to each other, they're multiplying. So multiply 2, if you moved it over to the other side, the opposite of multiply is divide. So it's going to end up becoming divide by 2. So then now you're going to have your m minus 3n, so that's not going to change, but the only thing that's now going to be added there is the divide by 2. And remember, in maths, if you write something in a fraction format, it's the same as division, and that's going to be equal to P. So your final answer is P is equal to m minus 3n over 2. So we're going to look at another example. So example 2. So if a question says make C the subject of the formula f equals 3c minus 4, if we have f is equal to 3c minus 4, again, we're going to imagine our equal sign being a fence. So the first thing that we're going to move over is minus 4, because that's furthest away on the same side as c. So minus 4, if you move it over, is going to end up becoming the opposite, and the opposite of minus is plus. So that's going to end up becoming plus 4. So now you've got f plus 4, the fence, and now you're left with 3c. So again, it's times by 3. So if you move it over, it's going to end up becoming divide by 3. And again, fraction format is the same as division. So you'd write it as f plus 4 over 3 is equal to c. Because now we've only got c on the other side, which is the subject that we're trying to make. So that's it. So that's going to be your final answer. Okay, so another example. So example 3. If a question says rearrange y is equal to half x plus 1, and we're making x the subject, again, rewrite your equation. I always like to rewrite the main thing in the question just so I don't miss anything out. And again, our equal sign is our fence. So the first thing that we're going to move away, because you're moving away whatever's furthest away from whatever you make the subject, so it's going to be plus 1. So if we move plus 1 over, it's going to end up becoming minus 1. So you're going to end up having y minus 1, and then your fence. Notice that whatever's on the left-hand side doesn't change. You're adding things to the left-hand side. So y minus 1, you've got your fence, and then you've got a half x. Now, when you have multiply by half, remember, if you're halving something, you're dividing it by 2. So remember, multiply by half is the same as divide by 2. And this also means that if you have times by 2, it's the same as dividing by a half. So they're opposites. And this is why the reason why I'm saying this is because if we've got a half x, you've got a half times x. If you now move that over, that becomes divide by a half. right? Because remember, when you move it over the fence, it becomes the opposite. But remember, divide by a half is the same way as saying times by 2. And writing times by 2 rather than a fraction over a fraction is so much neater. And remember, if you're multiplying something by a whole equation, it's neater to put it in brackets. You don't even need to expand the brackets. So putting the 2 and the bracket symbolizing on the outside is representing that you're doing 2 times that whole equation. So you end up having 2 bracket y minus 1 is equal to x. So that's one thing I want you to note about fraction changing the subject equations. We're going to look at another example on that. So example 4. If it says make a the subject of the formula, s is equal to a over 4 plus 8u, first thing is rewrite out your whole equation. Then put your fence, I know in an exam you wouldn't actually draw a fence, but I'm saying think of it as like a fence to help answer these questions. So again, the first thing that you move over is 8u. So positive 8u will become negative 8u. So you've got s minus 8u, then you've got your fence a over 4. Now, with your a over 4, remember if you've got something in a fraction format, it's the same as dividing. So it's the same as saying a divided by 4. So if it's divided by 4 on one side, if you move it over your fence, it becomes times by 4. And remember, to symbolize multiplication of an equation, we always put a bracket to make it look easier. Not make it look easier, sorry, make it look neater. So then you end up having 4 bracket s minus 8u, close bracket, and then you've got your fence a. And because a is whatever we wanted to make as our subject, that would be our final answer. So just remember, when it comes to fraction types of these questions, use the whole multiplication thing to help out. So example 5. So if a question says make s the subject of the formula, v squared is equal to u squared plus 2as, right? Again, write out your equation. Then put your fence. Then, because s is whatever we're making our subject, the first thing we're going to move over is u squared. So positive u squared would become negative u squared if you moved it over. Then you've got 2as. Then, to leave s on its own, it's easier if we just move 2a together. So because, again, letters and numbers next to each other in algebra are multiplying. So when you move them over, opposite of multiplying is divide. And that's why it's over 2a. So you end up with s is equal to v squared minus u squared over 2a. So that's basically changing the subject. So I hope that made sense. You always use the fence analogy and always think of whenever you're moving something over, it becomes the opposite. Once you learn all the opposites, it makes life easier. But if you like this video, please comment, like, and subscribe so I can keep releasing more content on this channel over the Christmas holidays. And yeah, thanks for watching.